What is happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we got to finish up the interior on the 3rd gen pickup. So we've already done seats, center console, and a few other things, but we need a dash, an instrument cluster. Now this is something I've been looking forward to. This is a super sweet digital gauge that we can plug right into the Holley system and read everything on this digital gauge off of just plugging in one plug into the Holley system. So I'm super excited about it. We got a little bit of other wiring, like some power and grounds, and then a GPS signal and a few other things. But this should be a pretty simple install and it should be a pretty sweet outcome. So let's check out what we got, and then we got to rip out all the stuff that is originally in the truck right now, the speedometer and the tach and everything the previous owner installed, and we're gonna replace it with this. So this is the full setup from Onegauge. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of them. This is the screen here, and they actually sell a dash mount for the 3rd gen pickup. So this will bolt right into the factory cluster mounts, and then this screen will bolt, it'll go on the back side, but it'll bolt into there, and then we just have to find a spot to mount this hub. Now this has all the connections if we weren't doing the Holley setup, but I believe this little pigtail here is a Y splitter, so we plug that into the Holley. We can plug in our little LCD from Holley, and that'll power everything to this cluster from the Holley system, so we don't have to wire in like separate coolant temp, oil pressure, anything like that. It's all coming through this CAN bus wiring. So super simple to do. This is a spare CAN module, and just in case we have issues, they send you a spare out. And then there's a couple different ways we can wire the power. They recommend either running a switch to turn it on and off manually, or running a relay. I think I'm just gonna go the relay route. That way, as soon as the truck fires up, the gauges fire up. I think that's the best way to do it. And then it's fully customizable too. We can get on a computer, hook it up to the computer, and do a bunch of flashes and everything like that, and get different configurations on this setup. So I am super stoked. Also, it uses a GPS antenna, so there's no vehicle speed sensor that you need. You just got to put this up on the dash, probably up in the middle here or something, somewhere we can hide the wiring and get that up there. But either way, this is what we got right now. This guy put in a Summit tach, and it's got volt, oil pressure, water temp. I'm going to take that out, and then obviously that cluster that we got is going to mount right here in the factory location. So we'll have to pull this bezel off, pull that factory one out, get a little bit of wiring done. We got to run that wire, like I said, over to the ECU for the Holley, and should be pretty easy to set up. Now, if you guys want to check out this digital cluster from Onegauge, I'll have everything linked down in the description box, along with the mount for the 3rd gen. This is super sweet because you just bolt it right in. We don't have to, make a bezel or anything. It bolts right in, like I said, to the factory mount. So if you guys want to check this out, if you're doing an engine swap or just want to upgrade, you can put this basically on any system. They have a bunch of different configurations on different systems, like for wiring and whatnot. So you could really use this on any engine, including diesels. You can run this on a diesel too. I think there's a couple little adapters that you need for like tach and stuff like that, but you can run this setup in just about any engine. Well, that Onegauge hub fits about perfect right back here. It's honestly a nice tight fit. I don't even think we need, I might throw a zip tie or something around it, but we probably don't even need to mount it. Such a good fit. But either way, we got to wire up a relay for the main power here. So this is the power wire. You can run this to the battery with a switch, but I'm going to do a relay. So we're going to run battery power to 1, and then ignition power to the trigger for this relay, so that when we turn the ignition on, we get full battery power at this relay, and then obviously the output and the ground. But either way, I think that's gonna work the best. So let's mount this relay up, get it wired in, run a battery power, and then I already have a switch power wire right here that I had into the ignition already. So let's get this wired up. All right, we got the main power relay down up under here. We got that mounted up. We got all the wires run, battery, ignition, ground, and the output to the Onegauge hub. Now there is a couple wires that we need to hook up to this hub that the Holley doesn't see, like fuel level, right and left turn signals, and probably a high beam indicator. I think I can grab some of that wiring out of the factory wiring here. I'll just have to find those wires and we'll wire them to these correct pins on here. Obviously you get the manual here and it shows you exactly what pins here. L4 is left, L5 is right, and then you can actually configure, there's 3 pins here for 12 volt indicator inputs that you can configure and customize on that screen. So we'll probably use one of those for the high beam, and then we'll hook the right and left turn signals up. And then there is fuel level here, which is right here. A4 is fuel level input. And then you can also configure the resistance for just about any fuel level sender. So we'll do that. We'll find the wires that we need out of here. We'll hook them to that, and then we should be pretty much good to go, other than all we got to do is plug that into the gauge and then run this one down and tee into that Holley connector. All right, I think we got all the wires we need. We got left turn signal, high beam indicator, the fuel level, which I'm just going to use the factory wire that's already running back there. I already got it hooked up to the sending unit, and then the right blinker. So we just got to hook those to the right pins here, and it's just a super simple screw. You just stick the wire in there, tighten the screw down, and we're good to go. All right, guys, we're all plugged in. We got the Holley plugged in as well, so we should have everything on the screen. Let's fire it up and see what it does. There we go. All right, welcome to Onegauge. Would you like a guided tour? Sure. Let's see what we got. Touch the left top corner of the screen to access screen menus. Touch the right of the screen to access on-screen buttons, race, timing features. Oh, cool. We can do all of our diagnostics on here too. View OBD2 and CAN bus messages to confirm functionality. Adjust ECU specific settings. All right, looks like we got a display here. So I don't know why this is all wigging out. Oil pressure is going crazy. Fuel level is definitely not at 0. We definitely got to go through, and I know we got to adjust the fuel level. All right, so we got our fuel sender right here. We can set up the ohm. So what you basically want to do is find the resistance at full and empty. I completely spaced measuring, so I'm about half tank, a little under half tank, and I got about 50 ohms. So I'm going to guess that sensor is a 7310, which at empty it's 73 ohms. So empty, we're going to go, let's go up to 70. Oh, nope. How do we go? I guess we'll go 75. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then full is 10. And then tank capacity, I believe, is 17.2 gallons. Now this doesn't have to be perfect. Now we're showing current fuel 115%. That's not right. I'm gonna figure this out and I'll let you guys know what it is. All right, guys, I finally got this figured out. I remeasured my ohms and now I got 26. I'm not sure where that 50 came from the first time, but I had to run a new wire up. I just got this temporarily right here. But at 26 ohms, I put like 5 gallons of gas in it, maybe a little bit more, but that seems about right. 30%, I thought we were closer to 40, but seems about right. So a 0 to 90 is a super common fuel sender, so I'm gonna go with that because that seems correct. And once we get fuel in it, we'll fill it up. If we're at 100, then we know we're right. If it shows like 300, then we need some adjusting. All right, here we got the main menu. You can go through the screen setup here and obviously change all this for Fahrenheit, miles, gallons, pressure. This all looks pretty good. We'll have to check the tach once we're up and running. So on the indicator screen here, you can set a bunch of different indicators. You can see fan, 4-wheel drive, door, gas. There's a bunch of different indicators. And pin 3 on the back, I have my high beam light, which I just went past it. Let's go find that again. Right there, high beam light. So that's all we really need. I'm hoping from the Terminator, we should be able to get some triggers here for water temp, oil pressure, voltage, EGT, trans temp, vacuum boost, fuel pressure, RPM, AFR. So we can set all these up, and the threshold. So water temp, sensor 0, threshold 255. We could probably put that at, 230 230 probably. So now if the water temp hits 230, it'll send an alarm. Then we can go, how do you go? Next sensor right there. Oil temp. I don't have an oil temp, so I'm not going to worry about that. Oil pressure low. 10's probably fine there. Voltage, or no, 3. Yeah, voltage low. 255 is definitely not right, but I'm not worried about that. Voltage low. Let's go maybe fuel pressure, which is 7, and reset. Let's go. My fuel pressure is at 43. Let's just go like a 30. That way if it starts getting low, we know. RPM doesn't matter. AFR, I'm not worried about that yet. That's all the setup in this menu. Then we can go to sensor setup, and we already got the fuel sensor set up. There's also the tilt and roll. You can set this up. I'm not too worried about that right now. Odometer obviously is at 0. Transmission setup, you can set up, looks like 1 to 9 gears. And I think this just shows like what gear you're in, but obviously with my setup, that's not really gonna work. And then relay, not sure exactly what, I'm not running any relays off of this, so I don't think I need to set anything up there. But either way, we got all that, all the diagnostics, but either way, data logging too. You can do data logging on here. And then there was one other thing I wanted to show you. There's about 1 million different gauges that this thing has, just pre-loaded in here. You don't have to download these or anything. There's a bunch of different gauges, like layouts and setups. That one's not bad right there. It's got AFR, volts, fuel pressure, trans temp, which I don't even have a sensor for, oil temp, oil pressure. I still am not sure what's going on with that oil pressure and like the fuel pressure, why it's wigging out, but either way, we're pretty much ready to go. I think we got the most of the setup ready. I'm ready to fire it up and see, make sure these oil pressure sensors and fuel pressure and everything is gonna be correct in here. All right, let's fire this puppy up and see what it does. All right guys, now we're looking better. I did an update, so now our oil pressure looks to be working. Our fuel pressure right at 41, that's working. AFRs look good. Water temp up here, 84. My coolant temp on here says 83, so that's really close. And we got map over here, that's manifold vacuum. The only thing that isn't working is oil temp and trans temp. Looks like volt is working. RPMs is working. Looks like everything's working. So like I said, I did an update on the dash so that I could have a reading fuel pressure and oil pressure. I think that was why I was kind of wigging out before, because that dash wasn't set up for it, and the Holley system was sending obviously all the info over. So we got that update installed. That seems to be working. Everything seems to be working pretty good. Now, one thing I do want to do, I do have the dash obviously, and I do have the handheld terminator. Ow, that was my head. I do have the handheld terminator screen here. I'm almost thinking I kind of want to mount this screen. There's plenty of room on that dash panel. I kind of want to, I mean, not that we need it because we have all the info on the Onegauge, but there's tuning we can do on here. It'd be kind of cool to have both screens up there, so I may mount this up inside that cluster. I think it'd be sweet having both up there. All right, so what I'm thinking is mounting, like I said, mounting this terminator screen up here. I think I'm just gonna go just like that. I mean, it's already got the mount. I'll just put a couple rivets in there and then cut a hole for the wiring. I kind of want to leave it exposed, that way we can take it off if we need to and access like that memory card back there or anything. I don't know, I think it'll be just fine. So might as well run both of these screens. I have it, and we can do our tuning and everything on this. I mean, might as well. So let's get that mounted up, run the wiring and everything, and we should be pretty much finished up with this gauge. All right, we're all installed. Let's fire these up and see how they look. Look at that. So like I said, obviously we have doubles of everything, but on here we can do all of our tuning and everything with the Holley system. Well, I don't know if you guys noticed on the dash, the IAT was stuck at like 32 degrees. Well, it turns out I talked to Onegauge and that was turned off, I believe, in the programming. So I got another update we're gonna run right now to make that Onegauge read the air intake temp from the Holley. So we'll get that display, and then he also sent me a oil temp sensor and a transmission temp sensor, so we can get those readouts on the dash too. So once we get those sensors in, we'll throw one in the line for the transmission, one in the block for the oil, and we'll have just about every reading on this Onegauge. It's going to be so nice being able to watch every readout, every temperature, every pressure, everything on this dash. It's going to be super nice. So let's get this update flashed onto the Onegauge. It's pretty easy. There's just a cable that we run from the Onegauge hub to the computer. We just download this super simple program, load the new file on. It takes like 5 minutes to do. We'll fire it up, make sure we have the air temp on the readout. And like I said, once we get those sensors in, we'll toss those in and see how that works as well. Well, we got our new sensors in for oil temperature and transmission temperature. So oil temp, we're gonna go right above the oil filter. There's a little plug in the block. And then for the transmission, we're gonna use the return line coming back from the cooler. That's kind of where you wanna measure it. I mean, the ideal spot would be into the pan, but I don't wanna pull that pan off and weld the bung and everything. I mean, that return line should be pretty close to the same temp as the oil in the pan. So let's do that. Let's get these sensors installed, and these are a 2-wire. So we got to run both wires up to that Onegauge, and one's the signal, one's the ground, but they both hook up to that Onegauge. Well, I guess the universe wants me to do this right. The temp sender, you can see, has quite a long shaft on it, and it's not even threading into that adapter at all. So we're gonna pull the pan. We're just gonna do it right. Pull the pan, weld in a bung, and just thread this sensor right into the pan. So let's get this done, and then we can plug everything back in and try it out. Well, now we can go back together. We got the temp sensor right here plugged in, and then we got the new Morso gasket. This thing, I've heard a lot of good things about this. This was actually already on. When I bought the truck, it had one of these gaskets, but the guy glued it on and kind of ruined it. So I'm gonna try this one again. Let's get this pan back on, get it filled back up. We got to bleed the coolant again because I did pull off a couple of these plugs that were leaking. I resealed those. I got my new funnel in, so we shouldn't be spilling anything. Let's get that filled up. And then we got one more update to do on the Onegauge dash for the actual display. A couple adjustments there, and we should be good to go. Well, this coolant funnel is gonna be a freaking game changer. No more leaks, no more funnels falling off and spilling coolant everywhere. So thank you for all the suggestions on that. If you guys aren't familiar with these funnels, I'll have this thing linked down below. It's got all the different adapters. It's got the Toyota adapter, it's got this GM adapter. It's got a bunch of different adapters that you can use to have a leak-free seal for your funnel, and it clamps on with the radiator cap. So super nice to have. I'll link that down below. So I'm gonna give that sealant just a little bit more time. You're supposed to give it 24 hours. I'm gonna give it, I don't know, a couple hours just to kind of set up a little bit on that probe for the temp sender. In the meantime, I'm gonna update the Onegauge screen. So this is a little bit different than updating the hub. On the hub, you just hook the cable to it. On the screen, you actually have to use a memory card. So we're gonna take this memory card, we'll load the new file onto the card, and then all we gotta do is get the card into the screen and power it on. And it should update by itself once we have this memory card in the screen and powered on. So let's do that real quick. Let's get this updated. So I think what the update does for the screen is that air temp is actually ambient temperature outside. I don't have a sensor for that, but I wanted that to read the intake manifold temperature. So it's going to pull that information from Holley, but we have to switch it with this update. So let's do that real quick, and then we'll fill the transmission with ATF. We should be able to fire it up and make sure everything on our screen is reading correctly. All right, let's fire this thing up. We got the card in there, so it should automatically update. Looks like it's, yeah, writing data. All right, update successful. All right, let's see if this update worked. So we updated, I think you gotta update each different theme, but we updated this one here. So I'm not sure why with the truck off, these are kind of moving around a little bit, but we should fire it up and we should have oil temp, trans temp, and our air temp right here. Looks like that's reading correctly, 69. My shop thermometer says 68, so that's correct. That should read our air intake temperature now instead of the ambient temp. All right, looks like we got our temps working. Oil temp, trans temp. They are moving around a little bit. We'll have to go drive it and see if those stable out at all. Air temp looks about right. I've been running it a little bit to bleed the coolant and fill up the transmission, but all these numbers look good. Everything looks like it's reading fine. Well, so far I am really liking this Onegauge. I think it's going to work out perfect. Now, as far as the trans temp and oil temp, those numbers are fluctuating a little bit. I imagine he's just going to send me a new update, a new flash that will kind of smooth that out. My fuel tank was doing the same thing on the fuel level. It was kind of just jumping up and down, and that last flash he sent over, he did some smoothing on it and that cured it. It's perfect now. So I imagine those sensors just need a little bit of smoothing out, and I think they'll be just fine. So everything's working great. I'm freaking pumped. This gauge looks so good and it works so good, and I love how it just plugs right into the Terminator Holley system. You don't have to run all your separate sensor wires. It's super handy for that. And the cool thing about it is it's so customizable. You can customize every theme, and like you guys saw, you can customize sensors. I mean, we switched from ambient air temp into intake temp, and like I said, with a couple adapters you could run this thing on any engine and have this Onegauge function perfectly. And like always, if you guys want to check this out, I'll have everything linked down in the description box with the Onegauge, with the bezel if you guys got a 3rd gen pickup or a 2nd gen 4Runner. That gauge is awesome. It bolts right in, it fits perfect, and it looks really good. Well, anyways, I'm out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Why don't you go smash that thumbs up button, comment, subscribe. We'll catch you in the next one.